So I interviewed
passage.
Larry interviewed the same guy, Aronson, today in a pre-tape, and he has this podcast, Trevor Aronson. He has a podcast around investigative journalism around the FBI and what the FBI did to infiltrate Black Lives Matter, right? And if you listen to Larry Daniel Favors yesterday, go on demand, get the app, listen to that interview because it was riveting. But I got angry at midpoint during this conversation with him because he said, I'm just a journalist. I'm just here. And I'm like, no, we don't have the luxury anymore to be just journalists. We don't have the luxury to sit on the sidelines and just report. You have to pick a side. This is that where we are right now. The line is drawn. This is 1939. Crystal knocks around the corner. You have an opportunity to say something about what's going on, or right on the precipice of Iran being overthrown and the Shah being taken out and the Ayatollah coming in, and you're right there. And it's not just about watching. Khashoggi got cut up into little bits and pieces, and basically the world didn't do too much, in my opinion.
I'd say zero. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So I'm like, being a journalist right now, okay. Everybody should be a journalist, number one. Everybody should be telling the truth and uncovering the facts, but we have to be more activists. And if the government is infiltrating organizations that were formed in the wake of injustices, usually perpetrated by the government, and we can, include the police in that, how in the hell, do we trust anything, right? So as you're talking, I'm like, this right now where we are is it's disconcerting. And I say, when you talk about the CIA, waterboarding and everything, I'm like, the things that this government has done to preserve our democracy, that's a lie, first of all. It's just really infuriating. It's very infuriating.
It's a huge problem, but I want to ask you this though, because you just said everyone's a journalist, but we need more activists, right? And I think the idea of journalism as being a watcher without judgment. If we have judgment and we are a journalist, doesn't that also create a blind spot or a potential for us to view a set of facts through a lens that could be detrimental if we misinterpret that fact? If we
like we already have been doing for the last 100 years?
Well, I mean, let's say, yeah, yes. You know what I mean? Like,
but let's tell the truth. Have we ever had a media that didn't pick a side, that didn't have baked in biases, that weren't already, he's talking about terrorism. And I said, so you're talking about Islamic terrorism. You're not talking about domestic terrorism, because this FBI does nothing about that. They're not infiltrating the folk that killed Heather Heyer, or the folk that went in and shot those people in Charleston or Buffalo. All of these extremist organizations that come out of the police department and our military, we're the infiltrators there. But you're infiltrating Black Lives Matter? That's what you're doing? So, like, where's the media outrage there when they say terrorism? Yesterday, I chastised the AP because they were like, rapper Queen Latifah. I'm like, she hasn't been a rapper in 20 years. Like, what the hell is wrong with you? She's a mogul philanthropist. She's out there doing, actress, rapper.
I think she has more movie credits than albums at this point.
Yes, she does. And I'm like, what the hell? What is this? What kind of lazy journalism?
What was your bias when you were doing journalism?
Honestly, yeah, I leaned into. So here's the thing: when I was early in my journalism, and as I think back, man, I was always very Black. Meaning this. No. There are a lot of journalists that have Black skin, but they're indoctrinated with, I have to please.
I see.
I have to show you that I'm not going to be biased. I never had that disease. so I didn't, and it's a sickness to me, because if you come into, all your editors are telling you what the story is, and they're not out there in the streets. They're not in the projects. They're not hanging out with the people who just lost children. They're not at the plane crashes, but they have very strong opinions about your community. I remember when I had a fight about this with one of my editors, and I'm like, you're not there. So yeah, I'm here to tell you what's happening. And there's only 4% of people who look like me in this newsroom, which tells me that there's already an imbalance in the way in which news is being covered, because 96% of the people aren't from the community that you are sending folk out there to talk about. And the only reason why there are even Black people in the newsroom is because of the riots. because you couldn't take your white ass into these neighborhoods to talk to black people about why they're upset. And even that news got covered through a white lens. Yeah. So the bias is built into all of us. I tell my students, you cannot not bring yourself to everything that you're doing. You must bring yourself. The goal is not to be unbiased. The goal is to be fair. Let me say this differently. The goal is to not be objective. You can't really be objective because you're a human being, but you must be fair. So I'm gonna have to give you, I already know what the story is, but I'm gonna have to give you your say, and I'm gonna have to print your say and let people hear your say. But I'm gonna tell the story in a way because there's other people telling the story. And now we only have, like, you can only watch Fox. If you only watch Fox, that's all you watch. Your local news is taken over by the same people that, worse people that run Fox, right? So now you're all getting your news through a lens that basically is not right anyway. So might as well put our thumb on the scale and be unapologetic about.
Yeah. Can I share something too? Like the Matt Taibbi. I read his books early on. I loved his book, The Divide. Talked about poverty. One of the best books I've ever read. I read it right around when I read the new Jim Crow, and both those books changed my whole view of society. And now I see this kind of, I don't know if it's a shift or what happened to him, but I watched a lot of his congressional testimony. I've been on his Substack a bunch. I've read it. It's just weird for me to see a change. It's almost like he's holding on to some fake advertising story of what journalism was supposed to be. And to your point, he's trying to double down on I'm a robot being objective, when in reality you can't. And the product of what he's doing is what you see in the congressional testimony, or what you see in the Twitter files, which should be reported on, should be things that we talk about for sure. But at the same time, I don't like how I'm feeling when I'm reading his work now. I feel totally different now. I don't feel like it's fair. I don't feel like he's doing the job that he used to do. And it's really, of all the people that I have followed over my 20 years of like reading intensely of the news and everything, it's really, it's hurtful. It's hard.
Well, I remember being in a room with Matt Taibbi. We actually did like early on in my first few years here at Sirius XM, we did a lot of crossover events with Insight and Pete Dominic. So it was Pete, Matt Taibbi, me, Laura Coates. We would do these election, kind of commentary. We stay up all night. They would be drinking and stuff. And he's a fun guy. It was fun. It was fun watching him drink. And he and Pete get like pissy drunk. And Laura pretend to be drunk. And I'm sitting there and I'm gonna, I guess I'm the get off my lawn person, but I don't play those games with people in public or private even. But I too liked him. I mean, he's from Jersey, for crying out loud. And, so there's that bias, it's like, you're from Jersey. So yes, we like you. And he seemed like a guy that really cared about the thing. And to your question, he wrote The Great Derangement, Griftopia, The Divide, the book that you like, I Can't Breathe, Hate Inc. He's got journalistic bones, but I feel like what has happened to media is that there's such a cash cow waiting to be milked. And once you drink from that cow's teat, it's hard to go back. It's like the Matrix in reverse. And then you're indoctrinated, because if that's what you're around and you're rewarded for it, like Pavlov, hey, there you go. I mean, this is an award-winning journalist let's play the clip from one of the clips from his testimony. We didn't talk about it, but so thank you for bringing it up.
Cool.
Yes. Play it, Smith.
Journalistic ethics and information sources. The Society of Professional Journalists Code of Ethics asserts that journalists should avoid political activities that can compromise integrity or credibility. Being a Republican witness today certainly casts a cloud over your objectivity. But a deeper concern that I have relates to the ethics of how journalists receive and present certain information. Journalists should avoid accepting spoon-fed, cherry-picked information if it's likely to be slanted, incomplete, or designed to reach a foregone, easily disputed, or invalid conclusion. Would you agree with that?
I think it depends.
Really? You wouldn't agree that a Journalists should avoid spoon-fed, cherry-picked information if it's likely to be slanted, incomplete, or designed to reach a foregone, easily disputed, or invalid conclusion?
Congresswoman, I've done probably a dozen stories involving whistleblowers. Every reported story that I've ever done across 3 decades involves sources who have motives. Every time you do a story, you're making a balancing test.
Okay.
Between the public
reclaiming my time. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I ask you this because before you became Elon Musk's hand-picked journalist, and pardon the oxymoron, you stated this on Joe Rogan's podcast about being spoon-fed information, and I quote, "I think that's true of any kind of journalism," and you'll see it behind me here. "I think that's true of any kind of journalism. Once you start getting handed things, then you've lost. They have you at that point, and you got to get out of that habit. You just can't cross that line." Do you still believe what you told Mr. Rogan? Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes.
Good. Now, you crossed that line with the Twitter files.
No.
Elon Musk, it's my time. Please do not interrupt me. Elon Musk spoon-fed you his cherry-picked information, which you must have suspected promotes a slanted viewpoint, or at the very least generates another right-wing conspiracy theory. You violated your own standard, and you appear to have benefited from it.
Yep. You did. And that was Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Congresswoman.
And I read Hate Inc. as well, by the way. And one of the huge things he talks about there is how many times the New York Times has misreported the deaths of drone strikes in the Middle East, how they've repeatedly said the same person had been killed multiple times in New York Times articles. Why? Because they were given evidence from the government, and they did not try to corroborate that with anyone. They were spoon-fed information. Matt Taibbi talks it, and I've repeated this to other people because it touched me very deeply, because this is the fundamental problem that I have with the Times. And he did the exact same thing. Like, he did not corroborate tons of the information that came from the Twitter files, that came from those emails that he was given. So this is what's really,
it's the access. And I've seen this with journalists.
Yeah.
I don't know how I avoided it, but access to people in powerful places allows you to compromise. And you tell yourself this lie. Well, I'm getting in so I can get more for the people. I'm getting in so and before you know it, you're so far in that you can't get out. Like you're already but I know how it happened little by little. It happened gradually. And the access to Elon Musk, who at that time, and maybe still now, I think about him maybe being responsible for the crash of SVB on some level, because those rumors started on Twitter. Why would you buy Twitter for $44 billion if you weren't going to use it as a tool and a weapon the way you did crypto, the way you crashed crypto and benefited from that, and, using these spaces of social media to create the frenzy, the fear. I mean, that's what media is doing now, right? That's the tool of media, is to create and whip up the emotions of people for political gain, for financial gain, and those who have the power to manipulate media are the ones that win, I guess. So he became a tool because he got inside. You can't play this game inside.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough.